transmigrated into a book, she raised a little maniac who grew up to be the male lead and annihilated her entire family for self-preservation. Secretly, she warmed his heart, taming the male lead into a devoted yet dark puppy, yearning only for her praise. He was Hilson, a man with the spirit of a wolf, born as a once-in-a-millennium werewolf of the royal family. He rose up and seized the throne, but unable to break the curse against overthrowing the royals. He was imprisoned and tortured day and night. After 15 years, he was thrown into a den of madmen, left to die. Seeing the luxurious carriage stop at the door, Elena ignored her siblings' provocations. Both of them went straight to their room. In this cruel family, 7 children fought for power. Her eldest brother, second brother, and third sister all died one after another. Their cold-blooded father not only mocked their incompetence, but also cruelly ordered them to abandon their emotions. Knowing the whole story, Elena had already come up with a plan. What did the family's destruction have to do with her? She just needed to do nothing. Stick close to the male lead and wait for the right moment to secretly escape. She had just fallen asleep when she heard a noise outside the door. It was Hilson, who suddenly realized the door wasn't fully closed. Elena quickly covered her mouth. Unless absolutely necessary, she didn't want to meet the male lead this early. She waited until the footsteps faded away, then tiptoed to the door. Just as she was about to close it, the door was suddenly pulled open. Elena lost her balance and tumbled straight into Hilson's arms. The 2 children stared at each other wide-eyed. Shoot! Her plan was ruined before it even began. But upon closer inspection, he realized the boy was quite attractive. The rules stated that because of his face? Hilson had killed a dozen fiancés. He ultimately became a cold-blooded killer. Elena immediately feigned innocence and apologized. She planned to slowly retreat to her room, but Wilson tightly gripped her hand, refusing to let go. "You're very beautiful," sweet words flowed from his lips. Yeah, but his face remained expressionless because of her black hair and golden eyes. Hilson immediately guessed Elena was the youngest daughter of the Rose family. He tilted his head, glancing at the room behind her. Elena's eyes scanned her surroundings without reservation. There was no plush pink bed, nor any cute jewel-encrusted toys. Everything indicated her low status within the family. Actually, Elena used to have a princess room just like that. But now all of that belongs to Connie. Even so, she prefers her current attic room. Because to gain power, she has to prove her abilities to the Duke. Snapping back to reality, Elena realized Hilson had been staring at her, waiting for an answer. "You know that too, huh? Seems like your mind isn't completely broken? So you're useless then." Hilson turned and left. Among the Rose family treasures, the most precious are the golden eyes, and Elena's eyes are clearer than anyone's. But compared to the impenetrable Duke, Elena seems weaker and more timid. Therefore, she has no value to exploit. Soon after, the Duke called a family meeting. He would tutor the Crown Prince, so Hilson will be educated here as well. Elena and her siblings competed to flatter him. The atmosphere grew thick with tension. Yet Hilson remained completely calm. Elena was utterly astonished. Those golden eyes, shining like jewels, possessed the ability to see through people's emotions. But so far, she hadn't detected a single flicker of emotion from the boy. But the Duke maintained his usual arrogant demeanor. He immediately warned the Crown Prince to behave himself. Faced with such a threat, Wilson remained indifferent. He even responded flawlessly. Bored, the Duke decided to leave. As he passed his youngest daughter, he frowned. "Useless!" Elena clutched her dress, desperately trying to reassure herself. It's okay. The Duke had barely left when Connie appeared before Hilson. She was clearly trying to provoke the seemingly helpless prince. Everyone seemed to want to step on him, but Hilson wasn't about to let her bully him. Elena was curious to see what would happen next, but getting involved would only lead to trouble. Making a quick escape seemed like the best option. Yet as soon as Elena left, Hilson followed right behind her. Hearing footsteps, Elena turned around. Why was he following her? This immediately angered her ignored sister, Connie. Hilson suddenly grabbed Connie's hand, standing silently in place. Elena glanced at her sister, only to see Connie's entire body glowing bright red. It made Elena quickly look away. It was the color of rage. Connie pointed at a trembling Elena, sneering. "So you're trying to win him over to your side against me?" The 5th prince, standing beside them, and constantly ridiculed the parasite. "This stupid parasitic worm. If father hadn't ordered me not to touch it, I would have gouged out those golden eyes long ago." His words triggered an unpleasant memory for Elena. Her father had said something similar to her, so whenever she heard it, she instinctively squeezed her eyes shut. Seeing the little girl's distress, Hilson remained silent for a long moment, until Connie dared to address him by his name. Hilson's body suddenly emitted a dull gray light. This color represented his displeasure. "How dare you speak to me so informally? Even the Duke needs my permission." Before addressing me so casually, Connie, usually arrogant and domineering, was speechless. One wrong word and she'd be accused of disrespecting her father. For the first time, Connie was being bullied. She was flustered and didn't know what to do. Elena couldn't bear to watch any longer. Hilson pulled Elena away. Though confused, they were relieved to have escaped safely. Once out of the room, they finally let their guard down. Elena breathed a sigh of relief. Before those crazy sisters came out, she had to get back to the attic. But the little boy was still following her like a shadow. This was driving her crazy. At first she thought she was mistaken, but he'd been following her for 20 minutes. It was so strange. What was he doing in this rundown place? Did he want her to take him back to her room? Elena mustered her courage. Why are you following me? Seeing the boy's confused expression, Elena tried again. This way leads to my attic. I know, Elena huffed, stamping her foot. Hilson suddenly glowed with a white light. The unmistakable color of joy. He watched Elena frantically run away. Hilson's face remained expressionless, but inside he was struggling to contain his laughter. Hilson realized Hilson was following her too. Elena asked breathlessly, "Didn't you say you weren't following me?" Hilson grabbed the doorknob of the next room and replied, "I never said I wasn't going to follow you." The misunderstanding made Elena blush as she stood frozen. Hilson asked, "Anything else?" Elena's face burned crimson. She quickly mumbled, "Good night," and ran back to her room. As the door slammed shut, Hilson murmured, "Good night to you too." Elena buried her face in her pillow, tossing and turning in bed. This was so embarrassing. Her father was unbelievable. She was his own daughter after all. How could he let a strange man stay in the room next door? Come to think of it, if her father was truly worried about her, that would be even scarier. Her siblings had been bullying her for so long. Oh, all with his tacit approval. She remembered how differently her father treated her when she was born. But even then, young Elena understood. A cold-blooded and ruthless man like the Duke would never genuinely smile so warmly. He gently called her Elena and kindly instructed the servants to take good care of her. Clearly in the novel, the Duke was very strict with his children. Why was she the only one treated so specially? At first, she thought it was a touching story of a tyrant having a change of heart, but she was wrong. It was her father's greed for her golden eyes, his daughter's golden eyes around her. The father who always radiated a white light before was now enveloped in suffocating darkness. Elena instinctively wanted to run, but before she could react, his large hand tightened around her throat. Before losing consciousness, Elena vaguely heard him say, "If you were born with the Rose family's golden eyes, you should have run away from the start." Since then, her father had conducted countless experiments, solely to test her abilities. But the novel never mentioned any of this. So every time she faced his threats, Elena maintained a bright smile, all because she was terrified to admit that the father she once loved was this kind of man. Only now did it truly sink in. The Duke never saw her as a daughter, only valuing her golden eyes. She had finally become useless, discarded. Elena consoled herself, trying to endure a little longer. After all, Hilson would soon arrive to destroy them all. But it had been so long since she had last seen. Such pure joy radiated from him. Elena quietly moved to the wall, curiously pressing her ear against it to eavesdrop. At first she thought Hilson had gone to bed early, but then she heard soft sobs coming from the other side. Elena thought she was imagining things. She sat up in bed astonished. The one who never wavered, the future emperor who would rule the world, was crying. What should she do? Should she comfort him? But then again, he was only 10 years old. Elena felt conflicted. Despite her discomfort, she had to stick to the plan, do nothing. But the thought of Hilson all alone, with only her to talk to normally, made her reconsider. A little comfort couldn't hurt, right? With that thought, Elena stepped out the door, but she immediately ran back to her room. What if something unexpected happened? It could change everything. Besides, if she went to comfort him, it would be like admitting she'd eavesdropped. The next morning, Elena woke up from a nightmare, riddled with guilt. She got dressed, ready to go out for breakfast. But as she opened the door, the familiar scene played out once again. Only this time, Hilson didn't jump into her arms. He was sitting on the windowsill, staring at her. Was he waiting for her? But as soon as he saw Elena, Hilson acted aloof and said nothing. Elena timidly asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" After receiving his answer, she hesitantly took a step forward. Wilson's eyes flickered with amusement. He seemed to be in a good mood. Seeing Elena leave on her own, Wilson quietly followed. Yesterday he'd been too stressed. He hadn't looked closely enough. Now he realized Elena, just waking up, looked like a fluffy dandelion. They arrived at the dining hall together. As expected, it was empty. Elena was used to this. In this crazy family, even meals were hierarchical. An incompetent person like her ate last, smelling the tomato soup. Elena went to get food, but Wilson stopped her. Nobles were served by servants. Wilson didn't understand what she was doing. Elena paused for a moment. Instead of explaining, she decided to let him learn the ropes. Looking at the full bowl of tomato soup, Hilson felt a sense of contentment. A pang of sympathy struck Elena. Just how badly had the royal family treated this boy? But as Elena was about to eat, Hilson stared at her intently. Why aren't you eating yet? Did he have some kind of grudge against food? Elena felt compelled to add, Enjoy your meal. After replying with the same, Hilson finally began to eat. Come to think of it, he had insisted she greet him first earlier as well. Could he be some kind of greeting goblin? Although at that moment, Hilson's silver hair shimmered. His canines do look a bit goblin-like. But he's still a young beast after all. He'll even use those very fangs to get revenge on those who hate him. He's not like her, foolishly clinging to others. Elena was born frail and sickly. Every time she neared death, the cruel duke would send for a doctor. This made the servants decide to treat her like air. Besides her siblings occasionally bullying her, no one spoke to her. Elena lived like a ghost, so she would never miss such an interesting sight. Little Hilson unleashed incredible power. Debris flew everywhere, nearly taking Elena's head off. The embodiment of the legendary werewolf, possessing a wider field of vision than humans and the instincts of a wild animal. To everyone, Hilson was a monster. Even Connie exclaimed, He's a total lunatic! But the Duke seemed displeased. Is that all? How utterly useless! With that, he ordered his men to bring training equipment. Then he flawlessly demonstrated a series of moves. It was Hilson's turn. In a blink, he completely destroyed the equipment. The Duke stepped forward and roared, You brute! Elena collapsed to the ground in fear. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Over the years, Elena had witnessed too much violence. Now even watching was terrifying. Later that night, Elena rubbed her starving belly, regretting skipping dinner. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the next room, accompanied by pained groans. The novel mentioned that the Emperor had tacitly allowed the Duke to torture Hilson. Even if he died, it wouldn't matter. Elena bolted out of bed. The main character wasn't supposed to die easily, but what if... With that thought, Elena rushed out of the room. She kept trying to convince herself that she wasn't doing this out of guilt. It was because Hilson was her good luck charm. Elena knocked, but there was no response. If she barged in, Hilson might remember. He was very wary of those who were kind to him for no reason. Elena hesitated for a long time. Finally, she opened the door and stepped inside. Elena was horrified by the sight before her, seeing Hilson brutally tortured by her father. She gasped and covered her mouth, approaching cautiously. Elena realized Hilson's breathing was very weak. She touched his forehead. It was burning hot. Hilson had a high fever, 104 degrees. Without hesitation, Elena rushed back to her room. She grabbed medicine and a cloth. Elena also fetched a basin of water. Rolling up her sleeves, she used all her strength to turn Hilson over. Cuts and bruises were visible everywhere. There wasn't a single spot on his body that wasn't injured. The fever has to come down first. Elena gently wiped the sweat from Hilson's brow. Carefully, she avoided touching the cut at the corner of his mouth. Then she gave Hilson the fever reducer. Soon, Hilson's temperature began to drop. Afterward, Elena applied ointment to his wounds. She was very gentle, trying not to cause him any pain. Seeing Hilson's tears, as big as peas, rolling down his cheeks, it was a heartbreaking sight. Elena collapsed beside the bed, taking Hilson's hand in hers. Hilson's cries gradually subsided as morning approached. Elena quietly returned to her room. As she opened the door, Hilson was sitting there, as always. After receiving the good morning greeting he'd been waiting for, Hilson continued to stare at her. Why were you so late this morning? He asked. Elena quickly made an excuse, but Hilson clearly didn't believe her. Why do you ask, huh? Elena countered. Hilson looked away. Nothing, just curious, he mumbled. Come on, let's eat breakfast. Elena was filled with doubt. Had she been discovered? Even though she was the prime suspect, there was no concrete evidence. Hilson hadn't opened his eyes all night. He was severely injured last night, yet today he acted as if nothing had happened. Perhaps because he was a werewolf, his recovery abilities were superhuman. After breakfast, he even initiated a conversation with her. Was the kid actually thanking her? But just as quickly, Hilson went back to his usual cold demeanor. Elena couldn't figure out what he was thinking. After eating, Hilson led Elena to the training grounds. Wait here until I'm done training. Elena was extremely buman, but she only dared to think it. She wasn't going to obediently listen. She had her own mind. Can I wait somewhere else? You don't want to see your father? Seeing Elena tremble, Hilson said, As you wish. Elena immediately ran towards a small grove of trees and sat down. She breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, he agreed, even though his look was just like their first meeting. But what was wrong with being useless? It was comfortable to ride on a smooth sailing journey. With the male lead at the wheel, wasn't it great? Lost in her thoughts, Elena drifted off to sleep. Moments later, The stench of blood reached Hilson's nose. Covered in blood, he slowly reached out his hand towards Elena. Elena panicked. Did he want her to hold his hand? Hesitating for a moment, Hilson grasped her hand tightly. Elena was so terrified she barely dared to breathe, noticing Elena's pale face and trembling hand. Hilson assumed his hand was cold. In reality, it was Elena's instinct to flee, but Elena couldn't tell him the truth. She tried to come up with an excuse, but blurted out, "I want to pat your head, because you did a good job." After a moment of reflection, Elena realized how ridiculous her excuse sounded, but Hilson completely bought it. Bending down, his head covered in blood, he said, "Praise me." He suddenly became friendly. Elena, trembling, reached out and patted Hilson's head. "Good job, Hilson. But how long do I have to keep doing this? My arm is getting tired. And if I may say so myself, the blood on you. It doesn't seem to be yours." Hilson calmly explained. "The Duke told me to fight a monster, it goes without saying." And it was a brutal fight. Elena snapped back to reality, noticing Hilson was still staring at her. Hilson hesitated, as if about to ask something, but then abruptly frowned and stood up, walking away. Elena was confused, but at least she was free. She touched her beloved bed. Finally, she could get a good night's sleep. However, a few days later, during a training session before time was up, Joseph attacked Hilson. Hilson barely managed to block the blow, but the Duke didn't stop this blatant foul. As a result, Joseph seized the opportunity. The sharp blade pierced his chest. Hilson writhed in agony on the bed. Elena was incredibly worried. Yes, she was back again. Elena lifted Hilson's shirt. Despite being bandaged, the clumsy wrapping allowed blood to seep through. Elena knew she shouldn't be taking such risks. In a few years, Hilson would kill her entire family, but if his wound became infected, she would die too. "Didn't you say you'd get revenge? You can't die like this." Elena turned to get more bandages. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her tightly. She turned around. Elena was surprised to see Hilson awake. His eyes questioned her why. Elena sensed danger approaching. Her hand flew out to escape, but Hilson grabbed it tight. It was over. Elena couldn't think of a reasonable excuse. Her only option was to run. But in her haste, Elena stumbled and fell onto Hilson. She managed to turn at the last second, avoiding his wound, but she was too close. Elena took a risk, covering Hilson's eyes and whispering, "You're just dreaming." Hilson stiffened, then burst out laughing. A colorful light emanated from him. It was a ridiculous excuse, but Elena had to try. She kept repeating, trying to hypnotize him. "It's a dream you'll forget when you wake up." Hilson's laughter subsided, then stopped altogether. His grip on her hand loosened. Even Elena couldn't believe it. Hilson had actually fallen asleep. Does she have some sort of hypnotic power? Well, the immediate danger seems to have passed, but Hilson is still incredibly pale. Elena is applying medicine and changing his bandages now. New bandages all done. After he commits his massacre, she needs to run away as fast as possible. If she waits until Hilson devours her, it'll be too late. Thankfully, she has these golden eyes that can see through emotions. If she senses anything amiss, she'll run immediately. But Elena didn't expect things to go wrong in just a day. Blood is already seeping through the bandages, dripping onto his foot. Yet Hilson greets her as if everything is normal. The strangest thing is, he's injured. But he's acting so cheerful. Is he testing her? Elena subtly slows down, preparing to make a quiet escape, but Hilson is waiting for her. She has no choice. Elena obediently followed Hilson. Hilson suddenly turned around and asked, "Do you have something to tell me?" Elena was startled and quickly denied it. She became so flustered that she fumbled. Seeing this, Hilson chuckled. In the dining room, Hilson unusually served Elena some food. He looked at her expectantly and said, "Enjoy your meal." Elena wondered why he wasn't avoiding her. Could it be that he really considered last night a dream? Just then, the door suddenly opened and a servant pushed in a food cart. These were delicacies the Duke had prepared for Hilson. This proved that he had been acknowledged by the Duke. Looking at the fragrant steak, Elena couldn't help but gulp. She quickly wiped her mouth. "I'll just finish my portion first," she thought. Elena didn't expect Hilson offered her another pre-cut piece of steak. Elena was taken aback. She had a feeling that if she didn't eat it, Hilson would just stare at her until she did. How could she refuse such a delicious offering? She swallowed the bite, her eyes widening. It was truly high-quality steak. Seeing her reaction, Hilson smiled. "I dreamt about you last night. Now that I think about it, it seems like this wasn't the first time I dreamt of you. Last time in my dream you held my hand." Elena broke out in a cold sweat. Unsure how to respond, she glanced at Hilson. This seemed to be the first time. They had talked so much. Elena hesitated for a moment, then asked, What did you dream about?" Hilson was silent for a moment before replying, "Just a nice dream. Strange. How could it be just a nice dream?" she thought. Could he be implying something? Hilson continued to feed Elena. Elena sighed, another headache coming on. She accepted the delicious dessert and stuffed it in her mouth with a frustrated air. Hilson chuckled at her reaction, but Elena's expression clearly said,
"You won't tell me about the dream."
"Just keep stuffing me with food." Honestly, she's so transparent, he thought. But her frustration was genuine. Though it started as a nightmare, it ended with everything she longed for. In the past, even knowing the food might be poisoned, Elena ate because she was starving. It had become a habit. That simple life had become Elena's deepest desire. Waking up and greeting each other, sharing safe meals together, playing and learning with friends, and then falling asleep peacefully at night. And if she could hear a good night, it would be perfect. Elena anxiously awaited her new life, but that hope vanished the moment she saw the Duke. It was out of the frying pan and into the fire. But no matter where she went, her situation remained the same. She shouldn't have expected anything from the start. However, it was at that moment that Hilson met a young girl. Her golden eyes sparkled brightly. She resembled the Duke more than anyone else, yet she was the least like him. Her name was Elena. Many interesting things happened between them. Wilson just wanted to go back to his room, but Elena thought he was following her. Finding it amusing, he teased Elena a little. Her face turned bright red, but Hilson didn't understand why. But in that moment, he felt a surge of joy. He smiled inwardly, but Hilson maintained his indifferent expression, so Elena was completely unaware. Later, a blushing Elena wished him good night. Hilson's mood suddenly shifted. It was the unexpected feeling of a wish he had abandoned, suddenly coming true. Hilson replayed the day in his mind. He'd been so awful to Elena. He'd snuck around, peeking into her room, and said some really rude things. Yet Elena still wished him good night. A pang of guilt hit Hilson. He thought to himself, this place, it's different from the palace. Elena, mid-meal, frowned slightly. Hilson had been in such a good mood just moments ago. Why the sudden shift to melancholy? Was it because he'd been kind enough to offer her food, and she hadn't seemed appreciative? Elena couldn't figure out what Hilson was thinking. She took a sip of water to compose herself, but drank too quickly and started coughing. Hilson immediately jumped up, asking worriedly, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" He gently patted her back. Elena waved her hand dismissively. "I just drank too fast." Hilson was confused, but according to Elena, someone who got stabbed in the stomach shouldn't be running around the next day. Hilson stared at Elena, then glanced at his own nearly healed wound. His werewolf blood did heal him quickly, but compared to a normal human, Elena seemed so fragile. And yet this frail, seemingly helpless girl wanted to help him. It seemed Elena didn't know that Hilson had remembered everything from the beginning. There's no such thing as a selfless good deed in this world. Yet Elena was making him break his own rules. He decided to tease the coughing girl. "Need some medicine, I noticed you seem to have a lot in your room." Seeing Elena's panicked expression, Hilson chuckled. Before Elena could run away, Hilson invited her to watch him train. And so Elena came again. She really couldn't refuse him. Looked at Wilson expectantly. It's just... Wilson looked at Elena thinking, she's still so small. What will she be like when she grows up? Will she be ferocious enough to tear people apart? Joseph's taunting voice broke the silence. Elena didn't back down. "Why are you provoking him?" she asked. Joseph, enraged, hugged a pile of firewood and retorted, "You came here to watch me get punished, didn't you?" Elena scoffed. "Looks like he broke the rules during training last time." He's been living like a servant for days now. Seeing Elena ignore him, Joseph threw down the firewood and stepped closer. He was about to strike when suddenly the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Wilson was approaching, sword in hand, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Joseph couldn't believe it. Is he a monster? How did he recover so quickly? Panicked, Joseph grabbed Elena. "Elena!" Elena quickly covered her eyes. Wilson, knowing Elena didn't want to witness the bloodshed, only verbally warned Joseph, "Since when were you allowed to be so disrespectful to me? If you have nothing else to say, get out." Joseph, enraged, raised his hand to slap Wilson. "Enough!" Duke Rose's voice boomed. Faced with the Duke's intimidating presence, Wilson wanted to provide Elena with some sense of security. The Duke asked the reason for the fight, though without even glancing at his daughter, but Elena couldn't stop trembling. To Elena, a dark aura surrounded the Duke, making her instinctively want to run away. Moments later, the Duke led the troublemaker Joseph away. Elena finally breathed a sigh of relief. Wilson suddenly grabbed her hand. "Let's go!" Elena desperately wanted to ask him where, but she had no choice but to follow. "I'll just be a good girl for now." But what's even more frightening is, there's a moment when Elena feels more comfortable around Hilson. In the future, according to the novel, he'll become the Demon King. He'll destroy her entire family without hesitation. Elena knows she shouldn't get too close to him, but for some reason, her heart won't listen. Halfway there, Hilson suddenly turns to Elena. He asks her if she wants to go somewhere. Elena thinks for a long time but doesn't know where to go. Hilson claps his hands together and says, "I have a great idea, Elena." "What do you usually do at this hour?" Elena hesitantly replies, "Read in the library." Hearing this, Hilson leads Elena to the library. This makes Elena feel awkward. If she's always around him, she might get caught in a storm. Elena made a bold decision. She prepared 7 or 8 reasons to refuse. Elena thought it would definitely work. But then she saw Hilson lower his eyes, looking disappointed. He was so adorable, it melted Elena's heart, like a lost puppy, waiting for someone to take him home. Hilson looked up and asked, "Can't I even wait for you outside?" Elena screamed no internally, but her mouth betrayed her and agreed. Hilson smiled. "Okay, I'll wait for you here then." Elena smiled and nodded. Hilson complimented, "You look even cuter when you smile." Closing the door, Elena's lips unconsciously curved upwards. After a moment, Elena snapped back to reality. Was she really this weak to a handsome face? She surrendered without even a fight. Thinking back, Hilson really was adorable, but she couldn't let her guard down. After all, this adorable Hilson would one day destroy the entire empire. In the novel, Hilson's childhood was just a minor detail used as a backdrop for his future. It was filled with suffering and hardship. That very environment was what made Hilson so skilled at mental attacks. He slaughtered many fiancés. He could still get engaged to others. There was even a time when a woman plotted to assassinate Hilson. But she was so mesmerized by his stunning beauty that she hesitated at the crucial moment. After Hilson woke up, he ruthlessly finished her off. Elena hadn't even finished reading a book when she glanced towards the door. Was he still waiting? Elena tried to sneak a peek to see if Hilson had left, but Joseph's voice came from behind her. Elena turned around. She saw Joseph enveloped in a dark, ominous aura. As Elena backed away, Joseph advanced towards her. He offered Elena an item, a gift from his father to Hilson, asking her to deliver it. But after Elena asked a casual question, Joseph lashed out, trying to hit her. Elena quickly shielded her head, but instead of a blow, she felt a gentle touch. Hilson had intercepted Joseph. His face flushed red, he apologized profusely to Elena. "I promised I'd wait for you outside." His words touched Elena's heart. As Elena reached out to ruffle Hilson's hair, the boy suddenly looked up. He patted Elena's head, comforting her. "Wait here for me." With that, Hilson turned and walked straight towards Joseph. Joseph flinched, speechless, and quickly ran away. Hilson wasn't going to let him off easy. If he didn't make an example of him, he'd just bully Elena again. Joseph frantically apologized. Hilson scoffed, "What good is a sorry now? I could break your arms and legs, then apologize." "Would you forgive me then?" Elena finally understood. Hilson's face was red, not from remorse, but from boiling rage. Kicked to the ground by Hilson, Joseph, humiliated and furious, lunged at him. He was 3 years younger than Hilson, but Hilson caught his wrist in a vice grip. Joseph's arm trembled uncontrollably. The difference in strength was overwhelming. Struggling to stay calm, Joseph told Hilson to let go. Hilson laughed and shoved him away. "You dare touch what's mine?" Hilson showed no mercy. Only screams echoed in the study. Joseph sobbed and apologized profusely. If his hand got crippled, he'd lose his standing in the family. Hilson suddenly went silent. His expression turned calculating, as if measuring the force needed to torture Joseph without knocking him unconscious. Hilson glanced at Elena. He couldn't always make these decisions on his own. He should consult Elena. Elena was pale as a ghost. Witnessing firsthand how the charming, sweet-faced protagonist could brutally handle someone, that was a stark reminder for Elena that this was a revenge story. She could very well end up the same way someday. Hilson gently took Elena's hand and touched her forehead, checking for a fever. He asked, worried, why she was so pale. Elena quickly pulled her hand back, saying she was just a little startled. Hilson sighed in frustration and gently helped Elena up. He put his arm around her shoulders and lifted her onto his back. "You're so fragile," Hilson muttered. Elena hesitated for a moment, then obediently settled onto his back. She ended up falling asleep. When Hilson set her down, Elena shyly thanked him with a bowed head. Seeing her color had returned, Hilson broke into a bright smile. He wanted to ask what she wanted done with Joseph. Should I crush his wrist? Elena quickly stopped him. That punishment is enough. To ensure Elena's safety, Hilson made a bold decision. He wanted to take Elena to see the Duke. Seeing her hesitate, Hilson offered an encouraging hand. He knew Elena was terrified of the Duke, but they had to do this. Even if she refused, Hilson would go himself. Elena reluctantly agreed. She wanted to see what Wilson was up to. But his smile? Elena just couldn't bring herself to hate him. Connie had just reported the fight to her father, learning his son was beaten and couldn't fight back. A disappointed Rose grabbed an oil lamp and threw it at his daughter. Connie suppressed her fear. This was the only way she could secure her position as heir. But then she heard her father say, "If only Wilson were my son." He'd never met a child with such potential. He couldn't bring himself to eliminate him. Why must we carry out the Emperor's request? The Rose family, despite possessing golden eyes, still had to obey the royal family. A werewolf, born only once every 300 years, was practically a subordinate of the Rose family. This was the perfect opportunity. If only his daughter could marry Wilson. Just then a servant arrived with news. His Highness Hilson and Lady Elena request an audience, raising the villainous young lady to become the dark male lead. The combined bloodline of the golden-eyed and the werewolf makes the cold-blooded Duke finally realize his daughter's worth. Otherwise, his killing of Elena's father would have been meaningless. 15 years ago, he imprisoned his brother Renos in the dungeon. Though Renos could barely stand, his gaze remained sharp. This greatly disturbed Rose. But because Renos saved his life at the age of 53, Rose vowed to always consider Renos his friend, his brother. They were twin brothers. One never smiled. The other always wore a gentle smile. Rose's eyes burned with hatred for Renos, a look that could devour him whole. It was a rare sight. But today, he brought joyful news to his beloved brother. Your daughter has been born. Renaud wept with joy, thanking the gods profusely. If it's a girl, name her Elena. I promise Stacy, Ruth said with a sneer. In the Rose family, except for the heir, all other members are forbidden to marry and have children. But Renos loved Stacy, a maid from a fallen noble family. He even broke family rules and ran away with her. The reason the Rose family caught them was because Stacy was pregnant. After capturing them, Rose had Renos' legs broken and threatened Stacy if she dared to run away. I will kill Renos. Well then, Stacy, pregnant, decided to stay at the Duke's mansion. Knowing his wife's decision, Renos abandoned his plan to escape. When Stacy gave birth to a baby girl with perfect golden eyes, Rose ordered Stacy's death. He wanted to raise Elena as his own daughter, so eliminating her real parents was necessary. Ruth proposed to Renos. I will spare your daughter's life. If she becomes my daughter, no one will know she is Stacy's child, but you must die. Renos smiled and agreed without hesitation. Ruth stood up and drew his sword, ready to eliminate the final threat. But before he died, Renos, his mouth bloodied, smiled and thanked Rose. Rose didn't understand her brother. She just thought he was a fool. Eventually, Elena became Rose's daughter. It was said that golden eyes could not only see through emotions, but could also read the future. However, the daughter Rose raised with her own hands was a complete disappointment. Elena had no abilities and no ambition. Rose even pushed her to the brink of death multiple times. Elena endured her father's torment as Hilson instructed. The only reward Elena wanted was to be by Hilson's side while he studied. The Duke readily agreed. He'd slaughtered his brother and stolen Elena 15 years ago. Finally, he felt his actions were justified. All because the villainous girl called the male lead husband. He sweetly slaughtered her entire family. Playing house was so much fun. He wanted to play with Elena for another 500 years. But the first step to winning his wife over is to tell her his weakness. Actually, I can't read. Hilson pressed his advantage. Can you teach me? Elena wanted to refuse, but Hilson's charm was too powerful. She swore to herself this would be the last time. She wouldn't interfere with Hilson again. Hilson called out sweetly, Teacher Elena. Elena gaped. What did you call me? From now on, you'll be teaching me to read. So don't be so formal. Before she could react, Hilson was ready to start their lesson. This is making me uncomfortable, Elena interrupted. Hilson hung his head, looking dejected. Sensing her hesitation, Hilson gave her a pleading look. Can we at least drop the formalities? The soft approach failing, Hilson switched tactics. Pick one, Elena. Either only I call you teacher, or neither of us use formal language. Fine, Hilson, it's a deal. Let's start our lesson. Hilson immediately lit up like a child. That evening, the lesson ended. As expected of the main character, just one lesson, and he could already deduce other things. Elena's curiosity was piqued. Why was Hilson suddenly being so kind to her? Hilson's answer was simple. Because you're kind to me. A look of pain flashed across Elena's eyes. She started to protest, but Hilson stopped her. Don't pretend, Elena, I know. Elena quickly changed the subject. I'm not a very good teacher, but luckily you're smart. It's okay, Hilson said. But after this lesson, Wilson was even more sure of his thoughts. That's right, you took teaching me very seriously, so you're also someone with ambition. If you find the right path, you can definitely become someone useful. Because useless people die quickly? Elena couldn't help but feel afraid. As expected, Wilson is no longer a normal person. The next day, Wilson pressed a book into Elena's hands. See you tomorrow. Tucked inside the book was a note. You have to teach me to read tomorrow, too. The handwriting was tragically messy. Elena returned to her room, lost in thought. Looking at Wilson's recent behavior, it seemed he considered her an ally, but Elena wasn't confident in surviving alongside the male lead. How could she make Wilson give up on her? Elena only had one answer: become useless. The plan Elena thought was perfect, only made Hilson cling to her more. The next day, Elena invited Hilson to play house. Hilson was flustered, but not in the way Elena expected. Hilson didn't even know what playing house meant. Elena patiently explained. It's a game where kids pretend to be adults, acting like a normal married couple. Hilson said, I understand, but I don't want to fight with you. Elena had overheard the servants gossiping. Their most frequent topic was marital arguments. Thinking back, Hilson had never experienced a happy family life. Elena stood up to show Hilson how to play. She drew a line with a stick and said, inside, this is our house, and we're a husband and wife who respect each other. Elena then pushed Hilson out the door. Now pretend you're the husband coming home from work, she instructed. Elena smiled, satisfied with Hilson's stiff posture. If we keep this up, the plan is halfway to success. Honey, I'm home, Elena called out. Hilson's face flushed crimson. He shyly avoided Elena's gaze. Elena pretended to cook dinner. To her surprise, Hilson actually stayed in character until bedtime. Elena told Hilson not to say a word. Wait until they wake up. Our family game will end today. It's a shame playing house is fun. I want to play wife with Elena tomorrow, too. Elena's heart skipped a beat when he called her his wife. She didn't feel anything, but now Hilson was holding her hand tightly. For some reason, he felt incredibly happy. Elena decided to change the plan. No more playing house starting tomorrow, but coincidentally, the next day, Hilson was taken away by the Duke. Elena took this opportunity to visit Joseph's room. His wounds were worse than Elena had imagined. Why do you always have to antagonize Wilson? Is causing yourself pain a hobby of yours? This time, Elena came to hear Joseph's apology. So were you wrong in the end? Joseph mumbled, I was wrong. Was he sincere? The proud Joseph turned his face away. Even if you were truly sorry, I wouldn't forgive you. Why won't you forgive me? You've been punished already, haven't you? If you were truly sorry, I would forgive you. I would even spare your wrist. Outwardly, Elena appeared calm, but inside she was terrified. Elena always thought Joseph was a little devil, but seeing him so afraid, she suddenly realized he was just a kid. If you sincerely apologize, I'll forgive you. Joseph just cried even harder. Was he that afraid of Hilson breaking his wrist? If he actually became crippled, he'd surely be the first one his father discarded. But Joseph cried and complained, There's nothing in it for you. Why are you helping me? You're such an idiot! Elena punched Joseph. I think you misunderstand. I'm not forgiving you because I'm worried about you. It's for myself. Although Elena hated Joseph, she couldn't just ruin his life. Just be careful from now on. Next time I won't forgive you so easily. Understand? Joseph nodded. I understand. I'm sorry, Elena. Luckily, Joseph's second apology, Elena could sense his sincerity. After everything was settled, Elena went to the small house where she had agreed to meet Hilson. Hearing Elena, Hilson turned around. He had been practicing writing while waiting for her. Try reading this. Elena wondered why Hilson had misspelled her name. Left with no other choice, Elena wrote her name out for him to see. But it's strange you wrote the more difficult characters beautifully. Did you misspell my name on purpose? Hilson readily admitted he wanted to see her write her name. Through his golden eyes, which could see through people's emotions, Elena saw that Hilson was very happy. Suddenly, Hilson leaned in close and kissed Elena on the cheek. Elena was stunned. So, what do we play today? I still want to play house. Hilson's nonchalant expression made Elena even more tense. Stay calm, Elena, she told herself. Stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. Let's watch the ants today, Hilson. Elena coaxed and cajoled Hilson, but inside she thought, he'll definitely get bored of this. Following through, they trailed the ants. Eventually, they reached the anthill. Suddenly, Elena realized something was wrong. Why am I enjoying this? Hilson seemed captivated as well. At this rate, the plan will fail. Elena quickly changed the subject. What did your father want this morning? He said I have to go to the imperial capital. He wants me to see him off. Hilson watched Elena's expression, afraid she'd be sad, but Elena didn't want to see Hilson off at all. At least she'd changed the subject. Game over. Leaving so soon, Elena felt Hilson clinging to her more than usual today. It was quite endearing. Let's go out again tomorrow, okay? The two children entered the forest. Something seemed to be glowing in the tree. Elena went closer to inspect, reaching inside to rummage around. Inside, there was a necklace. Someone must have hidden it here. Elena opened the locket. Inside was a picture of a woman who looked just like her, named Stacy. Suddenly remembering something, Elena ran towards the church. The closer she got, the more anxious she became. They stopped in front of a gravestone. Stacy was your mother. They say that right after giving birth to you, Elena. And she died from postpartum fever. The official wife of Duke Rose also died shortly after giving birth to her sixth son. She passed away quickly, too. So everyone called Elena bastard. The servants spread rumors, too. But those servants quickly vanished without a trace. So about her mother, There were only these rumors. Elena once asked her father if her mother had any other relatives, but her father said her mother was an orphan. But her mother in the pocket watch clearly had a last name. How could an orphan have a last name? I think this woman must be your mother. You two look so much alike, especially with those round faces. Elena blushed. She tried to calm her racing heart. You're right, she is my mother. I can feel it, seeing Elena's happy smile. Hilson smiled unconsciously too. Elena held Hilson's hand tightly and said, from now on, if I need, I will leave here. I will definitely find my mother. But not yet, because the Duke hasn't given up on my eyes. Hilson spoke seriously to Elena. Let me help you leave. Elena was stunned, tears welling up in her eyes. It was strange. She had wanted to avoid Hilson, but now, being close to him, that she felt at peace. A few days later, the Duke returned. He immediately summoned all his children, calling Hilson and Elena by name. He announced lessons would begin tomorrow. The two went to greet Hilson. Her father had always looked at her with disgust, but just now Elena saw nothing in his eyes. Could she have been mistaken? The Duke dismissed everyone, except for Elena. Even Hilson had to leave. Elena didn't dare look up at him. It had been a long time since they'd had a real conversation. The Duke suddenly softened towards the poor girl. I'll give you back everything that's rightfully yours, Elena. Move back to the main bedroom. The father Elena had always respected was the one who killed her parents. The love he showed her was just a ploy to get her golden eyes. Rose had no idea Elena was hiding her power. Her golden eyes could see through every emotion in the world. He said he loved her, but she could see the murderous intent radiating from him. Elena felt no gratitude towards Rose. In fact, she hoped the Hilson family would be destroyed. Elena didn't hesitate. She got up and ran to the next room. Seeing Hilson, the darkness in Elena's heart vanished. She ran to the table, took the glass of milk Hilson offered, and sat down to enjoy it. But Hilson couldn't take his eyes off Elena. He complimented her. That dress looks amazing on you. Overcome with affection, Hilson wanted to hug Elena tightly and pat her head. Lost in thought, Hilson didn't respond even after Elena called his name several times. We'll be studying together starting tomorrow. So are you nervous at all? She asked. Hilson admitted he was actually really looking forward to it. Elena's worries melted away. After all, the world seemed to bend to Hilson's will. Elena noticed Hilson yawning repeatedly. How about we sleep here tonight? Hilson suggested. I figured you wouldn't want to go back to that room. Rubbing her eyes, Elena agreed. She really didn't like that room. They decided to have a little indoor camp out. The two kids spread a blanket on the floor. Elena couldn't help but feel excited. What would the night sky look like during their campout? Hilson turned to look at Elena. Let's really go camping tomorrow, he suggested. Elena agreed, and they both looked forward to the next day. Suddenly, a strange feeling washed over Elena. Her plans felt almost unnecessary. She knew Hilson wouldn't abandon her just because she became useless. 4 years later, Elena had blossomed into an even more beautiful young woman. She was truly stunning. She declined Joseph's invitation because she had a date with Hilson. The villainous girl was taming the dark hero. Hilson had finally grown up. Their unspoken understanding, built over 4 years, helped them navigate their crazy family. Hilson knew what Elena was thinking without her saying a word. Elena happily ate her ice cream. He knew it was her favorite wasabi flavor. She had sped up. What did the Duke say to you? Wilson asked. Nothing, Elena replied. Ever since the Duke's sudden change in attitude, Elena was finally living like a true noblewoman. Anything she desired, the Duke would provide. He was trying to make up for the lost years, as if they never happened. He even went so far as to say that Elena was the only child he truly loved. He claimed to cherish her. Although he feigned regret, Elena only saw disgust in his eyes. But Elena didn't care. She knew her father never truly felt remorse. He never even offered a sincere apology. All he offered were material possessions and occasional empty words of affection. The private dinners with the Duke, which her siblings craved, were nothing but torture for Elena. In these moments, the only comfort she found was the ice cream prepared by Hilson. To her surprise, Hilson sulked, pouting with a dejected expression. Elena kissed Hilson's hand. The old Hilson would have definitely whined and questioned her. But now, he was a moody teenager. I told you I didn't want to eat with him. Elena realized Hilson had truly grown up. Looking at his face, anyone could tell Hilson would become a handsome man. He had also gotten much taller. They ate the same amount, yet Elena suddenly noticed, have you grown taller again? Let's go measure ourselves. Elena was surprised to find Hilson was a whole head taller than her. When they first met, he was much shorter than her. Moreover, something big happened that year, almost costing them their lives. Elena would never forget that day. Hilson had comforted her. I don't feel any taller at all. Elena felt a pang of regret. She wanted to see little Hilson just a bit longer. At snack time, Hilson realized something was off. I don't think I've seen this maid before. The woman bowed low. She introduced herself as a maid, accompanying the tutor to the Duke's estate. Hilson didn't pay much attention. He reached for a piece of cake when Elena swatted his hand away. No, don't eat that. Hilson immediately understood. Elena was blindly helping him again, but the maid radiated intense hostility. She seemed ready to make a move. Maybe she's an assassin sent by the Emperor to kill Hilson. Thinking that, Elena instinctively shielded Hilson. Hilson was used to such things. He suggested, "Let's hide here for now. If I go out now, I'll definitely be suspected." Suddenly, Hilson stared intently at Elena. "Elena, we're allies, right? What's there even to ask?" Elena smiled. "Trust me, Elena." "No, I won't let my people get hurt." Elena looked him over for a moment, then nodded vigorously. She tried to recall the original story, but the part about Hilson's childhood was only a very small part. Elena only remembered that Hilson was almost assassinated at the beginning, and not just once or twice. "Elena, can you let go of my hand?" Elena pulled back in alarm. The novel and reality had one crucial difference, a very important one. Hilson now had her, a burden, by his side. Hilson told Elena to hide the cookies and pretend she had eaten them all. Elena obediently nodded. At the very least, she couldn't hinder him. Hilson quickly grabbed 2 large dolls. He placed them on the sofa and covered them with a blanket, making them look like people. Then he and Elena hid in the wardrobe. Hilson told Elena not to move a muscle. He would find a chance to escape. He warned Elena to stay silent before he called her name. After some time, the maid entered the room. As expected, she had a knife hidden behind her back. But when she pulled back the blanket, she found the 2 dolls. She realized she had been tricked. Hilson chanted a spell. The room was plunged into darkness. Elena couldn't see anything. A strange, greenish gas crept towards her feet. There were 2 distinct streams of it. Elena could clearly distinguish who each stream belonged to. A strange thought suddenly popped into Elena's head. What if she stepped on one of them? She wanted to do something for Hilson. Elena stamped her foot. The smoke cleared, and the noise outside faded. Elena cautiously peeked her head out. She locked eyes with Hilson. Startled, Elena awkwardly scratched her head. Hilson jumped, stammering, "Elena!" Everything within reach was smashed to pieces, but the attacker was nowhere to be seen. "The attacker fell out the window," Hilson said. "They must be dead." But Elena couldn't shake a feeling of doubt. Why was he lying? The blood on the floor wasn't from a fall. Hilson covered his ears, fearfully saying, "I saw the attacker get distracted." I closed my eyes and pushed her. The table. The attacker smashed it with a dagger. It was all her fault. She was so aggressive. Even though Elena didn't understand, she squeezed Hilson's hand. "You did the right thing," she reassured him. Such a young child, yet capable of murder, and even covering up the tracks. This scene is both bizarre and terrifying. But no one has the right to blame Hilson. "Hilson, thank you for protecting me. You were scared too, weren't you?" Hilson pulled Elena into a tight embrace. "Hilson, I was so scared, Elena. I hope you—" Hilson swallowed the words she was about to say. How terrified must Elena have been to do that? But she looked so adorable at that moment. Elena hugged Hilson tightly. "Elena, are you still mad about what happened?" Hilson pushed Elena away. "Hilson, don't get so close to me." Hilson had been keeping her distance lately. She should have known it would come to this. She should have hugged Hilson more in the past. I miss Hilson when she was little, like a pixie. "If you keep being cold to me like this, I'm really leaving." Hilson's "suit yourself" caught him off guard. Slightly annoyed, Elena turned and left. Hilson listened as Elena's footsteps faded away, until the door slammed shut. Hilson breathed a sigh of relief. His face flushed crimson. This was crazy. Hilson knew he was being stupid, but every time Elena acted like that, he went insane. Like something was wrong with his heart. Why was he like this? But Hilson didn't want to admit it, because these feelings wouldn't be reciprocated. He was frustrated, but it was the truth. If only he had been slower to realize, blissfully unaware. Maybe that day, when the Duke gave Hilson a special mission, he started to understand his own heart. Ever since his first year at the Duke's estate, Hilson had been involved in fighting monsters. Then he received a simple task. If anything made it special, it was Elena's involvement. Wearing Hilson's clothes, Elena grinned and pulled him along. Hilson felt a strange fluttering in his chest. Elena said she wanted to wear comfortable clothes, so he lent her some old ones. That didn't fit him anymore. At the time, Hilson didn't think much of it, but seeing Elena in his clothes, he couldn't take his eyes off her. Elena grabbed Hilson's arm. "You have no idea how long it's been since I've been outside." Hilson tried to convince himself that the feeling in his chest was just him catching Elena's excitement. But it's strange. Why did the Duke forbid Elena from going out? It seems even he doesn't know the reason. Then Hilson offered to take Elena with him. Surprisingly, the Duke agreed immediately. What is that cautious man planning? But as long as Elena is happy, that's all that matters. It'll probably be fine. As soon as they mounted their horses, the guards all stared at Elena. This was the first time they had seen the Duke's beloved daughter. Hearing Elena laughing and talking with another man, Wilson suddenly felt uncomfortable. He couldn't help but warn the accompanying guards. "We're not here for a pleasure trip." Hilson turned and said gently to Elena, "I'll catch a rabbit for you later, okay?" Hilson sighed inwardly. They felt like they were on a picnic. But it wasn't so bad. At least Elena would always have this beautiful memory. But the beautiful sunny weather suddenly turned into a hailstorm. In such harsh weather, Hilson didn't want to see Elena disappointed. But for her safety, he had to take her back first. No monsters have appeared in this place for over a decade. Elena wouldn't be in any danger. Leaving one guard for her would be enough. Just then, a strange sound came from afar. Hilson ordered the soldiers to spread out and told Elena to come to his side. Elena dismounted gracefully and settled into Hilson's lap. Have we always had such a height difference? Hilson could encompass Elena's slender waist with just one arm. Today, Hilson was focused. He had caught the suspect's trail. Those purple eyes flickered with gold. Suddenly, countless vines erupted from the ground. Hilson tightened his grip on the reins. "Hold on tight to me, Elena!" After finding the monster's weak spot, he had to throw his sword to finish it off in one blow. It wouldn't be difficult, but if Wilson wanted to retrieve his sword, he'd have to let go of the reins or release Elena. Letting go of the reins could send them both tumbling. But he only had one shot. Wilson had to kill it with that one throw. But as he saw Elena about to let go, Wilson hesitated. "Are you sure? Are you holding on tight, Elena?" Suddenly, they both tumbled down a second slope. Wilson held Elena tightly, using his body as a cushion before disappearing from view. Wilson's consciousness began to fade. He woke up an unknown time later. He immediately looked at Elena, who was lying in his arms. "Elena, wake up!" he urged desperately. Elena slowly sat up. "I'm okay." Wilson was filled with guilt and self-blame. Elena was timid and must have been terrified. He wanted to give her a perfect, happy day. But then Elena smiled brightly. "We look so ridiculous right now." She even stood up and dusted herself off. "Why are you so calm?" Wilson asked, confused. "We almost died. Are you really okay? Tell me if you're feeling unwell." Wilson was surprised by Elena's unwavering faith. "With you by my side, what is there to worry about?" she said. "Take my hand. Let's find some shelter from the rain." They found refuge under a large tree. Wilson glanced at Elena. "Are you sure you're not hurt?" Elena waved her hand dismissively. "I'm fine." It seemed they would have to spend the night there. "Well, we're stuck," Wilson said, but his expression wasn't worried at all. He was happy to have earned Elena's trust. But looking back, won't this hardship become a fond memory? Strangely, Elena didn't answer. "Elena, don't you think so?" Elena scratched her head shyly. Well, memories are meant to be cherished. Hilson realized Elena always excluded him from her stories, like he wouldn't be in her future. But Hilson's future always included Elena. She always said he was leaving someday. This is our first time sleeping outside. How could I ever forget? How could I forget that? Elena suddenly realized, it's true! This is my first time sleeping outside. Hilson's anger melted away. He had no reason to be angry. He could only say to Elena awkwardly, just remember this for me, okay? No, I definitely won't forget.
Elena chuckled weakly. If we don't freeze to death first.
Hilson suddenly realized something was wrong. He quickly cupped Elena's face in his hands. Her lips were blue. Her body was alarmingly cold and she was growing drowsy. Hilson's heart clenched. He put his arm around her, pulling her close to share his warmth. Hilson's body temperature remained high, thanks to his werewolf blood. But as the night wore on, the temperature continued to drop. Elena showed no signs of warming up. Hilson had no choice but to use his body to keep her warm. They'd cuddled countless times since they were kids, but now for some reason, Hilson's heart was pounding. The tighter he held her, the faster it beat. Hilson, he even worried the sound of his own heart would wake. It was just a little warmth, nothing major. Elena was just being kind. Yet Hilson spent the entire night restless and anxious. That unintentional glance made Hilson realize his feelings had changed. They weren't as pure and innocent as before. The tighter he held his heart, the more elated and restless he became. It was ridiculous! Hilson knew perfectly well that he had no place in the future Elena envisioned. Yet he couldn't help but feel his heart tremble, like falling in love for the first time, only to be immediately rejected. No wonder he hadn't thus casually hugged Elena in a while. Looking back, perhaps falling for Elena was inevitable. But since coming to this twisted family, Elena was all Hilson had. He would willingly give her everything. He just didn't realize that included his heart. Elena, what am I going to do with you? Deep down, Hilson already knew the answer. Elena had to accept him. But how could she bring herself to do it? The next day, back at the mansion, Elena came down with a bad cold, and Hilson seemed to have a fever as well. This surprised Elena. She didn't expect that after they recovered, when she saw Hilson again, his personality would have done a complete 180. Hilson had become cold and distant. Elena tried to make peace with him, but Hilson ignored her. Elena felt that Hilson's mood had been very strange lately. Elena's golden eyes could read anyone's emotions. Yet for months now, she hadn't been able to see through Hilson's, but she couldn't understand why. Ever since the night they slept outside, Hilson's demeanor had become strange. Hilson's emotions used to be so pure and clear, but after that night, they were suddenly tainted with darker shades. Anxiety, worry, fear, tension, all these negative emotions were swirling within her. Could it be that now, Hilson found her presence annoying? Elena had thought he still liked her, even just a little. But now, it seemed she wasn't the only one for him anymore. Why had things become like this? After months of agonizing over it, Elena came to a conclusion. Hilson was going through puberty. That made perfect sense. But a hallmark of puberty was emotional turmoil. Looking closely at Hilson's emotional fluctuations, most of it was actually tinged with happiness. So, they were just temporarily on different paths. Given some time, their relationship would definitely return to normal. Hilson was still preparing Elena's ice cream as usual, but she wasn't responding kindly, just focused on eating. The more Elena thought about it, the more she felt like it was her fault. She was grown up now, why was she competing with Hilson? Elena didn't want this petty argument to create a distance between her and Hilson. Not because Hilson was the male lead who would later commit genocide, but because they were childhood best friends. He was also the only person Elena truly cherished. Although they would eventually go their separate ways, there was no need to drift apart so soon. Elena ran to Hilson's room. He was still there, but he seemed to be asleep. Elena carefully entered the room. "Are you asleep, Hilson?" He mumbled, "Yeah." Elena rushed over and quickly lay down beside him. They looked at each other and burst out laughing. Hilson quickly apologized. Elena's brow furrowed. "I should have been the one to apologize first." "But you stole my chance. I'm actually upset," Hilson indulgently said. "I'm sorry again." Elena hugged Hilson, whispering in his ear. Hilson barely heard her. He was only aware of their closeness. Elena suddenly looked up, making Hilson even more flustered. Elena saw his complex emotions. She deftly turned away. Hilson was a teenage boy. She had to be careful. "Did you forget to tell me something?" Elena suddenly remembered her father mentioning an upcoming exam. While Hilson wasn't a Rose family heir candidate, her father had told him to prepare for it too. It was a test of Hilson's limits. Elena felt a pang of sympathy, although this was just a minor plot point. It brightened Hilson's future. But fate had cruel plans for him. Anything but bright. "I don't want to get involved, but I can't just do nothing," Hilson muttered to himself. "Later on, I'll definitely face even tougher challenges. I have to overcome this trial." Elena remembered Hilson's words. He would reclaim his rightful place. This included revenge against his half-brother and his mother. Wilson was born this way. Anything he wanted, he had to have. But Hilson wasn't ready to tell Elena yet. Knowing Elena chuckled. "No one in this world understands you better than I do." Little did Elena know, Hilson was scheming, trying to figure out how to win her over. "Elena, why are you always so distant with me?" Before Elena could respond, Hilson grabbed her wrist. An hour into their gaming session, they both collapsed onto the floor. "Why have you been avoiding me this whole time?" "Stay by my side, sleeping with the villain." But Hilson pretended to be asleep. Elena secretly snuggled into his arms. Memories of their childhood flooded back. Hilson was just like this back then. "When we grow up, I want to be with you every day like this." Elena was completely captivated by Hilson's sweetness. She didn't know when it happened, but he had become the person she cherished most. The male lad who would eventually kill her. They lay there close and intimate. Elena wasn't afraid of Hilson like she used to be. Instead, she was more afraid of him leaving her. Yes, by then, even if she wanted to, she wouldn't be able to see Hilson anymore. She had to take this opportunity to admire him to her heart's content. Today, Hilson looked especially radiant. Perhaps it was the sunlight catching his silver hair. Suddenly, Hilson spoke. "Do you like looking at my face that much, Elena?" Elena was startled. She sat up abruptly, blushing and avoiding his gaze. Hilson chuckled indulgently. "You've been staring at me this whole time, haven't you?" Caught red-handed, Elena's face burned even brighter. They bantered back and forth for a bit, before Elena turned away in a huff. Hilson knew Elena was completely captivated by his face. She'd often whisper compliments about how cute he was, which he'd overheard many times. Even now, Elena still found herself staring at him frequently. Fortunately, this proved that he had grown into the exact type of person Elena adored. Elena thought, "About the exam I mentioned, if I pass. Can you promise me one wish, Elena?" Confused, Elena wondered why he suddenly brought up a wish. "This concerns you," Wilson said. Huynh stared intently at Elena. Think carefully before you answer, Wilson cautioned. What do you want? Elena probed. Wouldn't it ruin the surprise if I told you now? Wilson teased. Don't worry, I won't ask for anything unreasonable. Elena had a bad feeling about this, but refusing felt wrong somehow. Wilson seemed not only cheerful, but also strangely urgent. I just thought if I had a reward to work towards, I'd try harder for the exams. Is that okay, Elena? Wilson pleaded. It seemed as though he desired Elena herself. As a reward, Elena finally gave in. Fine, she conceded. Wilson's eyes lit up with excitement. Really? It's a promise then? Elena was surprised by his cheerful demeanor. It's definitely not because of this handsome face, she said. That you agreed. But are you really not going to tell me what? The wish is? Hilson cryptically replied. Let's keep it a secret for now. Only 7 days remained until the exam. The Duke ordered all the candidates to change their routines, but he didn't ask anything of Elena. Everyone speculated that Elena would be excluded from the exam, simply because she was the Duke's beloved daughter. But even though Elena had been treated specially her entire life, she couldn't get used to it. Suddenly Joseph appeared. What are you doing just standing there? Joseph had intended to show concern for Elena, but his words came out harsh. Elena immediately stood up. She tried to leave, but Joseph forcefully held her back. Elena was deeply annoyed. The heir's exam is in less than a week. Why do you have time to be here? Joseph found Elena's casual way of addressing him grating. You should call me brother, he said. He treated her so poorly, yet she didn't seem angry at all. Could it be he wasn't here to cause trouble this time? So what are you doing here? Seeing Elena still wouldn't call him brother, Joseph scratched his head in frustration. Today, I'm here to act like your brother for once. Joseph dismissed the servants, then patted the seat beside him. He gestured for Elena to sit. To anyone watching, they'd look like the best of siblings. For the next week, don't do anything to stand out. Elena noticed Joseph wasn't his usual aggressive self. He almost sounded like he was giving advice. Joseph warned Elena not to get too close to Hilton. Elena was confused. Just listen to me, Elena, Joseph said. Especially around Connie. Be very careful. From now on, no matter the situation, you need to stay away from her. Now repeat that back to me. You know better than anyone how much Connie hates you, Elena. Elena's circumstances had suddenly changed drastically. Siblings were fighting over the inheritance. They were certainly unhappy with their father's unfair treatment. But between the two of them, Joseph was the easier one to deal with. Regarding their father's sudden favoritism, Joseph openly expressed jealousy, but not hatred towards Elena. Seeing Elena spacing out, Joseph raised his voice. Are you even listening to me? Answer me, Elena responded. It's strange. Why are you suddenly so kind as to warn me? Do you secretly care about your little sister after all? Absolutely not. Joseph stammered, denying it vehemently. His words were arrogant, but shame practically radiated off of him. Joseph had ratted him out. After Elena forgave him, Joseph would occasionally visit her. If you keep talking nonsense, I'm leaving. Elena giggled. No, wait, don't be like that. Why are you telling me to stay away from Hilson too? Joseph hesitated, taking a moment to think before answering. Connie really hates it when you're close to Wilson. But Elena could tell Joseph was lying. He was hiding the real reason. If Elena pressed him, Joseph would definitely leave. Elena decided to let it go. In the Empire, turning 20 meant officially inheriting the family title. But Connie still hadn't earned his father's approval. The Duke's special treatment of Elena only made Connie more resentful. Seeing Elena furrow her brow, Joseph asked, What are you planning to do? Elena decided to stick to her plan. For the next week, she would try to avoid Connie. Though she felt incredibly frustrated and humiliated, she had no other choice. This was the wisest decision for now. The Duke had forbidden her from learning any skills, so Elena had no opportunity to learn swordsmanship. She couldn't train her poison resistance either. But Elena wasn't about to avoid Hilson. She ignored Joseph. Joseph sighed helplessly. I warned you! I told you to stay away from Hilson! Just as Joseph finished speaking, Hilson appeared behind him. Hilson suddenly radiated a murderous aura. Terrifying the two siblings, Joseph quickly stood up to deny everything. But Hilson only tightened his grip. Joseph was on the verge of tears. Elena had to step in and explain. She gently pried Hilson's hand open. Can we let go of each other's hands first? Today. Hilson stared intently at Elena for a long moment, then looked towards... Joseph scoffed. Speak up. Your mouth works. But your aura, Hilson, is unsettling. Elena tugged on Hilson's arm. Sit down, please. Hilson's anger subsided as he obeyed Elena, taking a seat quietly. Joseph hovered nearby. Enjoy yourselves, he mumbled awkwardly. Before Hilson could react, Joseph bolted, seeing Hilson about to give chase. Elena threw herself at him. I'll handle this. You go. Joseph hesitated. If you want to thank me, Elena said, make sure nothing happens during the exam. Come back safe. I will win. We will all come back safe. With that, Joseph sprinted away. He's such a fool, she thought. He's only hurting himself, but there were more pressing matters at hand. Hilson was pinned beneath Elena. She scrambled up, apologizing profusely, but she didn't seem to notice Hilson's blushing face. Elena started to explain, a hint of hope in her voice. Hilson, don't misunderstand. Like Joseph, I don't want to leave you either. Suddenly, Hilson stood up, covering his red face, stammering. I understand. Let's talk later. He turned and hurried away. Elena was taken aback. It was so sudden, she didn't even have time to react. But the color of his emotions didn't seem like anger, more like embarrassment? Elena sighed, even though she could see emotions. Teenage boys were truly hard to understand. Elena didn't see Hilson for the rest of the day. That morning, he had said he didn't want breakfast. During class, he said he wanted to practice. By noon, Wilson had finished eating and left. It must have been because of what happened yesterday. He was deliberately avoiding her. Elena wasn't going to be polite anymore. Elena yelled Wilson's name down the hallway and bumped into Joseph. Joseph advised Elena to go back to her room to avoid Connie. Reluctantly, Elena turned back. As soon as she looked up, Elena saw someone standing in front of her door. A young master, raised with everything, was nothing but a foolishly love-struck man. The male lead had been avoiding her all day, finally showing up in the evening. Elena was about to lose it, but seeing his face, she couldn't bring herself to be angry. His drooping ears peeking out made Elena utterly smitten. Wilson lowered his head and apologized softly. I didn't know how to face you, so I could only run away. But, thinking back, I shouldn't have done that. Hilson couldn't look Elena in the eye. The air grew thick with awkwardness. Elena sighed. I don't know what you did wrong, she said. But just the fact that you came to find me, means I'm not going to hold it against you. Because for me, the most hurtful thing was you avoiding me. Elena's unconditional forgiveness only made Hilson feel worse. Elena caught the flicker of emotion across his face. She could read everyone's emotions, but she couldn't understand Hilson's love for her. Their eyes met. Hilson looked like he wanted to say something, but instead he just shrugged. It's nothing, really, he mumbled. Asterisk, nice try, Elena thought. Asterisk, I saw all that intense emotion just now. Asterisk, and you're going to lie to my face? Before, Hilson would have looked at her with flustered eyes. He'd be stumbling over his words. Since when did you become such a good actor? Elena stepped closer. Do you have some sort of problem with me? Hilson reached out his hand. What problem could I have with you? You're so well behaved. Hilson's hair was a bit messy, but the atmosphere had softened considerably. Elena fixed Hilson's hair, while muttering, You sly fox trying to trick me like that? How can I ever forgive you? Hilson suddenly sighed. You're so clever and sharp one moment, and then like a child the next. They say the Rose family is good at reading people's minds. Could you be the same? The smile on Elena's face slowly stiffened. This was about her ability to read emotions. She had never told anyone. People generally have a strong aversion to this ability. Elena feared that if Hilson found out the truth, he would also reject her. Lost in thought, Elena was interrupted by Hilson. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Actually, you're nothing like Rose's family. Elena chuckled, teasing Hilson lightly. Hilson, it's okay, I'm not upset. Don't worry about it. But if you still feel bad, then you want to confess something later. Tell me your secret discreetly, okay? There was a knock at the door. When the butler arrived with a message, Elena assumed the Duke was summoning Hilson, but it was her he wanted to see. Coincidentally, Joseph was standing outside the study, waiting, sensing the emotions seeping from the cracks in the door. It was a torrent of rage and fury. Elena had a bad feeling about this. Connie suddenly threw open the door and barked, Get in here, both of you! Her golden eyes burned with rage. Her older sister wanted her dead. The successor exam was approaching. The younger sister would need the male lead's help to survive. Their father had allowed her to participate. If she didn't produce results within a week, she would remain there forever. The Duke observed his three children's varied reactions. One was bewildered, one was consumed by rage. The last one he couldn't quite read, but she trembled with fear. For Elena, it was a death sentence. Seeing his youngest daughter's fear, the Duke smiled satisfied. Whoever achieves the highest score in this exam will be my heir. As soon as the Duke left, Connie cornered Elena. Connie's grip on Elena's shoulders was paralyzing. Elena tried to push Connie away, but it only fueled Connie's rage. Everyone's saying, Father wants to make you the heir. So why are you acting so clueless? Connie thought she just had to make it through this year. The heir position would definitely be hers. No matter how much Father favored Elena, she could endure it. She just wanted the power to control everyone. But now everyone was whispering that the Duke might give the entire estate to Elena. The Duke pretended not to hear, which only made the rumors spread more. Connie told herself not to worry. But what if it was true? What if Elena already knew and purposely spread the rumor? Did you do this? Connie demanded. Elena shook her head firmly. The difference in strength and size was too great. Elena could barely breathe. The tears welling up in Elena's eyes only made Connie angrier. Ever since we were little, you've been a parasite clinging to Hilson. In the end, it's all thanks to him. Elena, you're nothing. Just because Hilson noticed you, you have the chance to compete for the highest position in the Rose family. That position should have been Connie's. Back then, it would have been so easy for Connie to have Hilson all to herself. Compared to Elena, she's not inferior at all. I just didn't realize Hilson's worth early enough. If it weren't for Elena, that's right, if it weren't for you, that position would definitely be mine.